Hello and welcome. In this video we'll start to look at the axis orientation used on a 3-axis CNC milling machine. We'll also be working through a series of exercises that will help us figure out the difference between absolute and incremental coordinates. So let's get started. This vise is set up on a Haas 3-axis vertical machining center, a VMC for short. Let's take a look at the axis orientation for this machine. When drilling a hole, the machine is moving along the Z-axis. When the table is moving from left to right, the X-axis is being traversed. When we move in and out, the Y-axis is being moved. When we create CNC programs and start to figure out where to send the machine in the X, Y and Z axis, we can use absolute coordinates or incremental coordinates. Now, absolute coordinates are measured from the 0 position. For this part that we'll be working on later, the X0, Y0 is at the center of the part, with Z0 at the top of the part. We as programmers can decide on when to use absolute or incremental. Part of the program can be in absolute and another part in incremental. For example, we may look at the print of the part and decide it would be easier to program a series of holes in incremental, as the holes are dimensioned between centers, as opposed to a common datum where absolute might be a better way to go. Let's start to figure out some absolute coordinates. The X-axis is running from left to right horizontally on the screen. The Y-axis is lying vertically, and the Z-axis is shooting along perpendicular to the screen. Now the origin, X0, Y0, is in the lower left of the screen. In absolute coordinates, what would be the X and Y at the center of this circle at position A? Well, one along the X-axis and one along the Y-axis, and both are positive numbers. Remember, with absolute, the coordinates are figured out from the origin, our X0, Y0 position. Let's check out position B. So what we're doing is figuring out the absolute coordinates. So for position B, the X value is going to be 4 and the Y value is going to be 5. So X4, Y5. Now moving on, position C. So the X value, the absolute X for C, is X5 with the Y at 2. So for position C, X5, Y2. Now position D. So the X value would be lucky 7 and the Y 4. So for position D, X plus 7, Y plus 4. And let's check out position E. So the X value would be 8 and the Y value would be 3. So position E, X8, Y3. Let's take a look at incremental coordinates. Incremental is the distance from the last position to the next endpoint. What we are doing is working out the point-to-point distance. Now take a look at the drawing. The incremental distances between the centers of the holes are 1 inch. The video shows the part being drilled on the CNC machine. When the machine moves from hole to hole, it is moving 1 inch incrementally. Some of the movements are positive, some are in the negative direction. Let's start to figure out some incremental coordinates. So the x-axis is running from left to right horizontally on the screen. The y-axis is lying vertically, and the z-axis is shooting along perpendicular to the screen. Now, in incremental coordinates, what would be the distance in x and y from the origin to the center of the circle at position A? Well, incrementally, from the origin to position A, 1 inch along the x-axis and 1 along the y-axis, and both are positive numbers. So remember, with incremental, we're figuring out the distance from the last position to the next endpoint. And we also need to identify if it is positive or a negative direction. What we are doing is working out the point-to-point distance. So from the origin to A, x0, y0 to A, x is 1 and y is 1. Now from B to C, what's the incremental distance in x and y from B to C? So we're moving 1 unit in the x, and that's a positive value, and from B to C we're moving down in the y direction, so it's a negative direction. So from B to C, x is 1 and the y is negative 3. Now here we are at position E, and we're moving over to position D. So let's figure out the incremental distances in x and y from E to D. So in the x we're moving negative 1, and in the y we're moving positive 1. So from E to D, x is minus 1 and y is positive 1. Now this completes this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll be talking with you soon.